Hello all, so today we are talking about motor development and mostly the lifespan development. So motor development is also encompassed within the broad area of motor behavior. The definition and scope of motor development, its background and emergence as a subdiscipline of physical education, and areas of study are briefly described in this section. Motor development is the study of the origins of and changes in movement behavior throughout the lifespan. Gallahue, Osmond, and Goodway define motor development as the progressive change in motor behavior throughout the life cycle, brought about by interaction among the requirements of the movement task, the biology of the individual, and the conditions of the learning environment. Payne and Isaacs define motor development as a lifelong process involving the progressions and regressions in our movement ability as we pass through life. They point out that motor development is complex, and to fully understand motor development, we must understand the ongoing interaction between the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains throughout our lifespan. Motor development traces its roots to the developmental psychology. Gallahue, Osmond, and Goodway describe the history of motor development as moving through three periods of growth. Based on the explanations used to describe the developmental process, the maturational period from 1928 to 1946, the normative descriptive period of 1946 through the 1970s, and the process-oriented period, which is 1980s to the present. The maturational period marked the beginning of the growth of motor development as an area of study within physical education. During this time, researchers were interested in studying the underlying biological processes governing maturation. Early researchers such as Arnold Gazelle, Mary Shirley, Myrtle McGraw, and Nancy Bailey studied the sequences of motor development in young children, beginning in infancy. Their work led to a better understanding about the sequence of normal development, moving from the acquisition of early rudimentary movements to the attainment of mature movement patterns. The researchers found that although the rate at which children acquired motor skills varied, the sequence in which the children learned was relatively the same. Wild's 1938 study of throwing behavior in school-age children was the first research to focus on the development of fundamental movements in children rather than in infants. Wild classified children's overhand throwing patterns into stages. Her work later served as a model for classifying developmental movement patterns in children and influenced work in the field for years to come. The normative descriptive period focuses on describing the motor performance of children rather than the motor development of infants. Much of the work was undertaken by physical educators. Anna Espenshad, Ruth Glasso, and G. Lawrence Rarick were leading contributors of this era. These leaders were interested in children's acquisition of skills and how growth and maturation affect performance. Their research efforts and leadership in the establishment of doctoral programs in motor development during the 1950s and 60s contributed to the emergence of motor development as a field of study within physical education. Motor development, motor learning, and motor control emerged as sub-disciplines within the growing academic discipline of physical education during the 1960s and early 1970s. Researchers during the 1960s through the 1980s, such as Rarick and Robert Molina, concentrated their efforts on understanding the influence of growth and maturation on motor performance. Ralph Wickstrom's work on fundamental movement abilities helped us more fully understand these critical motor skills. Lola's Halverston, Mary Ann Robertson, Vern Seefeld, and John Habenstricker focused their efforts on understanding the development of fundamental motor skills, that is, the levels or stages that children pass through as they acquire skills. In the 1970s, researchers became increasingly interested in exploring the processes underlying the development of motor skills across the lifespan. Kevin Connolly's edited book, Mechanisms of Motor Skill Development, set the foundation for further research into the cognitive processes associated with motor skill development. Jerry Thomas was one of the leaders in researching how cognitive factors influence children's motor skill acquisition. David Gallahue and Kathleen Hayward contributed much to our understanding of lifespan motor development. Other researchers such as Esther Thalen, Scott Kelso, and Jane Clark developed theoretical frameworks to study motor development based on dynamical systems theory. The emphasis on understanding the processes involved in motor development plays an important role in research today. Many broad areas of study fall within motor development, including the influence of age on the acquisition of skills and the development of theories to serve as a framework for our understanding of how movements are developed and controlled. Specialists in motor development may investigate questions such as these, like what are the hereditary and environmental factors most significantly associated with obesity? At what age can children safely engage in resistance training? How does socioeconomic status affect the development of motor skills? And what are the developmental stages individuals go through as they acquire fundamental motor skills? And what factors affect the rate of development? Other questions are, how does early sensory stimulation affect the development of motor skills? How does the wearing of shoes or different types of shoes influence the development of walking? And what are the changes in motor skill development experienced across the lifespan? Since physical education, exercise science, and sport for professionals are concerned with helping individuals of all ages acquire and improve their motor skills, motor development from both its theoretical and applied perspectives is important to professionals in our fields. So just some talking points related to motor development and motor learning. There are beliefs about growth and development as well as physical activity that vary from culture to culture. As professionals, it's important we understand how these cultural beliefs influence the acquisition of motor skills and participation in physical activity by people of all ages. Although many today view engagement in physical activity by older adults as positive and contributing to good health, some older adults face discrimination and lack of opportunity to participate as a result of ageism. We need to be more aware of the challenges individuals with disabilities face in the learning of motor skills, particularly those individuals who have disabilities affecting their senses. Since these senses play a prominent role in learning, we must find ways to address these challenges and help individuals reach their potential. And as physical education programs in these schools are cut back to address academics, efforts must be made to ensure all children and youth have access to opportunities within the community to develop their fundamental motor skills, providing them with a strong foundation for future participation in physical activity. More sophisticated technology will play an increasing role in helping us understand the neurophysiological processes of how people learn and control their movements. We will learn more about the physiological, neurological, psychological, and sociological changes associated with aging, enabling us to better help the older population remain physically active throughout their lifespan. As sport specialization increases, school physical education becomes an important venue to help ensure that youth who specialize in one sport achieve proficiency in all of the fundamental motor skills, not just those required by their sport. And the field of motor behavior, specifically motor control, motor learning, and motor development, traces its roots to psychology. These disciplines emerged in the mid-1960s and 1970s from the parent discipline of psychology and developed identities as specialized areas of study with physical education, exercise science, and sport. Motor behavior is a broad term. It encompasses motor control, motor learning, and motor development. Motor control is the study of the neural mechanisms and processes by which movements are learned and controlled. Motor learning is the acquisition of motor skills as a consequence of practice and experience, whereas motor development is the study of the origins and changes in movement behavior throughout the lifespan. Many theories and models have been advanced to describe learning. One theory is the information processing model. According to this model, learning and performance of skills can be described as a series of information processing tasks consisting of input, decision-making, output, and feedback. Another theory is the dynamical systems model. This model explains the learning and performance of motor skills as the interaction between the individual, the environment, and the task. Individuals pass through 3 stages when learning a motor skill: the cognitive, associative, and autonomic. Learning is influenced by readiness, motivation, reinforcement, and individual differences. To facilitate motor learning, physical education, exercise science, and sport professionals should incorporate concepts for motor learning into the design of their practices. Fundamental motor skills form the foundation for learning more complex skills. In developing these fundamental skills, individuals move through 3 stages: the initial, emerging, elementary, and proficient. Professionals should understand how motor skills develop so they can design learning experiences to facilitate their acquisition. The developmental sequences approach and the dynamical systems approach have been used to explain how fundamental motor skills are developed. We are going to be talking a little bit more in our next session about the motor development theories associated. I hope you have a great day. I'll talk with you soon.